Let's talk AFC East, AFC South. Obviously, there was a big trade yesterday. Stefon Diggs going to the Texans. We all know this. The Texans receiving, or I should say the Bills receiving a second-round pick, a couple other things in that trade. I think there is a very interesting betting angle here. And Proppy, I'm going to start with you, Larry, then I'm going to go to you. I'll start with the AFC East. Proppy, we were on HQ yesterday, and you know I have an opinion here. I'm just curious, as far as the AFC East is concerned, any take here on a division winner? I know we're pre-draft, but some of these lines might be good to take now.
Yeah, fascinating trade, obviously. See, I look at this honestly as being potentially mutually beneficial to both the Bills and the Texans. Let's start with Buffalo. I think this may be a case of addition by subtraction. We saw Stefon Diggs just really not on the same page with Josh Allen towards the end of the season. Wasn't getting targeted a lot either. I felt Buffalo's offense, when they kind of shifted to more of a run-first offense, really found a lot of success. I also think there's less pressure when you don't have a dominant alpha wide receiver one that commands 12 to 15 plus targets on a per game basis. Opens things up more. I feel like you can spread it out. You don't have to necessarily force feed targets to one player in particular. So I think this ultimately is a good move for Buffalo's offense. I think we'll see guys like Dalton Kincaid. His role will really expand. I love the way they utilize Kincaid all throughout the season as a move tight end. Really was like a big wide receiver. They played him in the slot quite a bit. So I think Dalton Kincaid is in line for a massive target share. But I don't think this is necessarily a case where Buffalo takes a step back offensively. I think they're still going to be very good in this Josh Allen-led offense. I do think they're going to run the football quite a bit, and I think they'll be very effective in doing so.
Larry, I agree that the Bills aren't going to take a step back as a result of the Stefon Diggs trade. I just think they were going to take a step back regardless of whether they had him on the roster or not, which is why I love the Jets at plus 240. Listen, if the Jets were plus, 170, I'd be like, I still kind of like the Jets, but I don't know that I'm willing to bet it. But at plus 240, presumably getting Aaron Rodgers, one of the best quarterbacks of all time, back for the season. I know we love to hate him, and I'm not talking about you, but the public in general. This plus 240 number seems way too large to me. Do you disagree with me? Is this a stay away? But I'm betting the Jets plus 240. I mentioned it on HQ. How do you feel about this AFC East race?
A lot of sharp people are on the Jets. See, I think this was a great trade for both teams. I mean, the Texans, when you have Nico Collins, Tank Dell, Stefon Diggs, Joe Mixon, that offense is going to be electric. But on the Bills side, I mean, he was terrible the last 7 games. Let's just be clear. 315 yards. He caught just a little over half his targets. And then with a chance to go to the AFC title game, you drop a perfectly thrown ball down 27-24. You're the elite WR1. You cannot do that. And we've seen him fail in the playoffs. They saved $20 million on the cap. Next year, they could draft, the speedster Worthy or Adonai Mitchell from Texas, or maybe they make a blockbuster deal for one of the big name wide receivers. So I think the Bills will be fine. I think Josh Allen will be fine. And the narrative, and we're going to get into the MVP, but the narrative of Josh Allen having a monster year without Stefon Diggs could carry him to the MVP.
Yeah, that's completely fair. Okay, let's transition to the AFC South real quick. Let's just touch on this because I do think there's a betting angle here. Then we'll just touch on the MVP, and then we'll finally get to our official picks. I like the Texans plus 110. If you've been listening to me the last 3 years, even when Trevor Lawrence was at Clemson, I was not a Trevor Lawrence guy. People that were calling him generational, I kind of chuckled at that a little bit. I think the Jaguars are a fine team. I think the Texans are a lot better. I think they've surpassed them. Colts, I think there's a lot of question marks with Anthony Richardson. I think he's a good quarterback. I think he'll be fine. I don't know that he's going to be healthy. And the Titans, I don't think are in the conversation right now. The Texans are ascending in such a big way. And I would have said that without Stefon Diggs too, but certainly Diggs helps the situation. Plus 110 seems very fair to me. Larry, I'm going to kick it right back to you. Let's try to do this in 30 seconds or less so we can get to that MVP conversation. How do we feel about the AFC South?
It's a fair price. There's not a ton of value, but yeah, they're the rightful favorite by far. You're not paying CJ Stroud a lot of money, so you can spend elsewhere. Not a lot of holes on the roster. They do have a first place schedule. That's my only concern.
Yeah, that's fair. It is a tough schedule. All right, Proppy, any thoughts on the AFC South in terms of a division winner?
It's a much different story, in my opinion, when you're not creeping up on teams. Obviously, the expectations for Houston last season drastically different. Now they'll have the bullseye on them. Teams will be expecting, a team that's going to be good on paper. So I don't think there's any value, really, personally, on the Texans at the current price. I'd be looking at the Colts and Titans, though. I do think there is some sneaky long shot value with both of those clubs.
That's interesting. I mean, I'll give you the Colts at plus 325. I'll tell you, Jay Swift agrees with you on the Titans. He says, wow, Sia, Titans definitely got a chance. I don't know that it merits a wow, Jay Swift. Like, I completely missed the ball on the Tennessee Titans, but I hear you. The Titans are a strong team. I think they made a bad decision getting rid of Mike Vrabel. Obviously, Derrick Henry not on this team anymore. A lot of changes coming to the Tennessee Titans. I just don't think they are the caliber right now, maybe in a couple seasons, that these other three teams are. All right, real quick, before we get to Bucket's official pick, let's take a look at the MVP odds. Larry, you mentioned this. We got, of course, the king, I just mentioned Derrick Henry, the king. I mean, the real king, Patrick Mahomes, plus 600 to win the MVP. Josh Allen, plus 900. We got Burrow. I mean, let's see what happens with him coming back from injury. I think the Bengals are just an interesting case in general. CJ Stroud at plus 1,000, and of course, Lamar plus 1,200. Larry, any value here in this MVP market or anything that just strikes you as a curious number?
Yeah, Josh Allen finished top 5 3 of the last 4 years, over 4,800 yards last season, 44 total touchdowns. You still have Shakir and Samuel and James Cook and Dalton Kincaid and whoever they draft or acquire. Plenty of weapons plus the narrative angle to get Josh Allen the MVP.
All right, Proppy, what do you like in this one?
I concur with my colleague Larry. I think if I were to pick a selection just based off these 5 names, I'd be looking Josh Allen's way as well for all the reasons Larry mentioned.
Yeah, fair enough. I don't know that I have a strong opinion on this MVP market. This is definitely a stay away. The only bet I'm willing to make right now, and I do want to bet the Texans plus 110, but I kind of agree that I don't know that there's a lot of value presented with that number. It's the plus 240 with the Jets. Of all the things we've discussed, that's a bet I'm laying out. That's a bet that I'm going to take this early on April 4th. All right, Buckets, I got to ask you, before we get to your official soccer pick, I don't know that you know all these guys, but if there's anything I know and that this chat knows, and by the way, the chat wants you to bring back the Going the Yard segment because you were so good on a show that you weren't on. I think it was on Tuesday or maybe Monday. Somebody was asking for you to roll the dice for some of these home run props. So maybe that's something we can bring back as well. Either way, what do you like here? You got to pick a name. There's like a 90% chance you're going to be right based on history. What do you like in the MVP market?
See, I think 9 minutes and 10 seconds is the longest I've ever gone in my life, not just on the show without speaking. So cheers to me first and foremost. But with that being said, I do have a 6-sided die in my hand here. So let's go old school here. We're just going to roll that. There's only 5 people on the board, so we're just going to pray it's out of 6, 1 through 5 on the way down. We've got 4, so we're going to say 1, 2, 3, 4. CJ Stroud to win the MVP. That's my official lock here.